Hello, welcome back to the Shifting Focus. We have such an amazing guest to introduce you guys to today. We have Tina Parker on. She is a leadership and success coach and a global speaker, and she is a dear friend that I got to meet during the Great American Speak Off that we did down in Florida. Tina clicked. She's got some incredibly valuable information, and we just thought she would be such a perfect person to have on our first virtual podcast. Tina, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's up?
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you so much for having me out. You're first. I thought it was so exciting. So exciting to me. And I'm just grateful to be here with you. And David's with us. So
David's in a different seat today. He's producing. So we'll.
Hello, I'm here, everybody. I'll let the ladies start us off, though. You girls keep going.
Yeah. And I know I jumped right in to tell me about yourself, but I love your story. It's so much fun. I can't wait for you to share it with everybody.
Oh, well, thank you. So interesting for some folks. I retired from the Air Force after 23 years in service. And most people are like, you did what? And what was so incredible about that, though, is just the opportunities that I had in leadership throughout. And so it was a natural progression for me to go, okay, leadership, that's my thing. It's my jam. I went to my first leadership retreat in 8th grade. So I kind of drank the Kool-Aid then, right? And it just stuck. But I think for me, what's been so powerful in my trajectory through my career is trying to stay aligned with who I really am inside of an environment that can be a little restrictive. In case some folks aren't aware.
Tell us more. What do you mean by that?
The whole thing about military is break you down to build you up, right? And you stay within the lines. And so my company is called Lead Outside the Lines, specifically because it's like, yeah, inside of what you think is an environment where you can't show up as who you really are and bring your gifts, like you think, oh, I'm supposed to be in this box. Actually, the magic happens when you don't stay in the box, right? When you bring your gifts and your authenticity, and it can be a little daunting sometimes, right? So for me, I call it courageous authenticity, because showing up as who you really are can feel scary sometimes. But I've had amazing opportunities with amazing people, and the times that we all collectively as a team did the best is when we could all bring our gifts to the table. So
military background led you to this leadership, led you to speaking. I know you went through a crazy last 4 years. Do you feel like talking about some of that on here today?
Absolutely. Well, and it's, I feel like every step that we take in life is a stepping stone to where we're supposed to be, right? So even the ones where you go, yeah, I'd really like to not do that again. It still leads us to where we're meant to be. And for me, I will say it was a little while ago, but there was a 4-year period where I was doing all the things, right? And I think a lot of folks who are high achievers and you want to achieve big success, you're doing everything, right? You're showing up, you're getting the degrees, you're building the business, you're working your way up the ladder, right? Your mom, wife, that was my story, right? Doing all of it. Helping my husband at the time, so that's part of the story, helping my husband at the time, right, build a business that's still going strong today, so happy for him, but wife, mother, going up the ladder in my career, building a business, serving in the military at the same time, and yeah, I had a period of about 4 years where what we call the big Ds, there's 4 big Ds that are like major stressors in people's lives, and for me, I got all 4 in those 4 years.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sitting in the parking lot at work and I just thought to myself at the end of this, I said, what am I doing? Like, I just felt like I was on autopilot, just kind of going through the motions. And I sat there and I went, how is it that I can be so quote unquote successful in my professional side? And then personally, things are literally falling apart. Like in 4 years, I lost a child to stillbirth. I had a child almost right away, then cancer. So I had, it was insane. So it was a tumor that they said, look, we don't normally find this in this place. And usually this is the kind that kills you within 10 years because we don't find it.
Oh my God.
So by the grace of God, right? And then a year later, divorce. So literally all 4 of the big Ds: death, divorce, debt, and disease. Because when you get divorced, your finances change a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and it was in that moment I went, okay, I got you, God. I hear you now. Like something's out of alignment here. And that was really the catalyst for me to go on this journey, 10 years of just learning from the gurus, the experts in self-leadership, wellness, well-being, transformational mindset, like neuroencoding and brain health. Like I just was like, how are we humanly wired for success in one place and not in the other? Because I'm the same person showing up in both. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's really what has led me to creating the framework that I use now to help people step into their highest potential in all areas of their life. Because when you're out of alignment, like it's like your car. Mm-hmm. Right? When your car's out of alignment, you're off track quick.
It's a good little analogy. At what point when you were in the death, disease, the debt, the divorce, where was that bottom part where you thought, this is it, this is rock bottom and something's got to change? Like what was that turning point in your life?
Yeah. You know, I think it started with losing my son to stillbirth because for me, I was 6 months into my pregnancy and my water broke just out of the blue. And yeah, and so what I needed to own was the week leading up to that. I was sick. I had a fever. I was not doing well, but I had to push through, right? I had to be at work, had to do what I got to do. And I don't blame myself for anything that happens because things happen in life. At the same time, it was a wake-up call for me to go, maybe I need to start paying more attention to my own well-being, right? And taking care of myself. And then it just snowballed from there because I got pregnant 2 months later, right? And my body's like, whoa, what's going on here, right? And then 6 months after I gave birth to my daughter, cancer. So it literally was like, God was like, you have got to take a break. And so I thought it was all the things I was doing, right? That was the problem. And I hit rock bottom at the divorce, right? So when all 4 of those D's stacked up, and I just thought, okay, something has to change. And it was really interesting because what I found that I just love to share with folks is through this trajectory of this journey of discovery with all of these folks that are experts in well-being and health and leadership and transformational mindset is it wasn't all the things I was doing. It was who I was being while doing all these things. That was what needed to change. And when I got that and I learned how to apply that in my life, everything opened up from there.
When you were taking all those guru courses, were you just having aha moment after aha moment, or was there a certain point where something really heavy struck and you thought, this moment?
So I will share with you when my daughter was 6. Right? So I really started on this when she was born, this journey of discovery. And when she was 6, she started having some, shall we say, impulsive moments at school. Like,
what do you mean exactly? Tell us what you mean by
that. Because that's what led me to this big discovery that I just want to share with folks. So we did about 18 months with her going through star charts and behavior and, you know, the things you do with kids to help them learn, hey, don't do that. But for her, like she would just lash out and literally like cold clocked a kid in the face one time because he cut her off in line. And she wasn't this way. Like her teachers were like, what is happening with this girl? Right. Yeah. And so when I said to her, I said, honey, he's the line leader. He's supposed to be in the front of the line. Like she was like, oh, but she was so remorseful and we could tell something was going on. We didn't want to put her on medication, just our choice. So we actually took her to Dr. Daniel Amen's brain health clinic in Costa Mesa and had a brain scan done. And that's why I am a brain health trainer and neuroencoding specialist now, right? Because we got to see what was happening in her brain and why she was lashing out in the ways that she was, because she's so sweet and she wasn't trying to hurt anybody. What we found for her was that her brain was all systems go all the time, right? So some folks, when like ADD or dyslexia or some things that we have titles for, right, show up, the symptoms are there, but it can be a very different thing that's happening inside that's causing it. So for her, they told us, they said, look, if you had put her on the medication, it would have been like throwing gasoline on a fire. It would have been the worst thing for her. But how would you know if you don't look? Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge aha for me, is the way we are wired as people. And you don't have to do a brain scan to figure that out. Like, there's a lot of ways, right?
Sure, yeah.
But the way we're wired, the drivers of our behavior, it's not the action. And so many coaches, and it's not wrong to say, change your action, right? Oh, we were trying for like 18 months with her to change action. She knew what to do. We all usually know what to do. Like, I know to get up and put my shoes on and go for a run, but I don't always do it. Because the drivers inside of us, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, right? The conditioning that we've had throughout our lives, just being in life and learning from other people, we hold ourselves back. But when we can understand how we're wired, you get to choose. And so for her, even as a young kid, now, like, she'll say to me when we're like, come on, honey, get your homework done. You got to get going. Because she takes some time to process, because she now knows to count, to breathe, to soothe herself so that she can have better functioning of her mind. She'll say to me, she's like, I'm thinking over here. I need a few minutes.
How old is she now? How old's your daughter? How old is she now? Is she
she's 12 now.
She's 12. Okay.
Yeah. But that was a huge aha, because she could have more compassion for herself too. Instead of being like, there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Right? And how much of the time, like, even for us as adults, we want to go do something really big. We have big dreams and big goals, right? But we don't know what's holding us back. Well, it's the way we're wired. So when we can make the invisible visible, then we get to decide what we want to do with it. But if we're not aware, it just runs our life usually off track.
How does somebody become aware of those times? What would that be? What does that look like? Because I mean, we don't have a brain coding machine. And if you could fill us in a little what that is too, because some people I don't think know what you're talking about with the brain coding.
Yeah.
What is that? And do we need it to find ourselves?
It's, you know what, it's the next level. So I will say the SPECT scan for us, like, you lay in this big tube and they do a whole scan of your brain so they can see how your brain is functioning. And that's, for me, that was like a last resort, right? That wasn't the first thing we thought of. But because now I'm certified in it, I actually can help folks discover, like, there's questions that you can ask yourselves. And a lot of times we just don't know. We don't know what to look for. Right? And so when I pulled my framework together for scale, that's what I call my framework, the S is structure, because there's certain questions, there's ways of looking at things to make the invisible visible to us so that we can start to see what's actually driving us. We don't have to know how our brain is necessarily wired specifically, but we each individually have these beliefs. And I'll share a quick story around that, because that can be kind of an esoteric thing and hard to grasp onto, right? So one of my clients, he's a venture capitalist, and he is an expert in deep tech. And most VCs, like, just don't have the expertise he does, right? And he was like, I want to go and open up my own holding company for deep tech because I know what I'm looking at. And I'm like, great, that sounds awesome. But he wasn't doing what he knew to do. He's like, I don't understand why this is so hard for me. I know it. Like, what's the problem? So we just kind of peeled back the onion a little bit, you know, some discovery questions. And one of the things he said, he was like, I don't like to talk about myself. Well, okay, if you're going to go out there and share an expertise with people, you kind of need to be able to talk about it, right? And so I said, okay, what do you believe about people who talk about themselves? So it's just another way to frame the question, right? To take it off of ourselves and just sort of be an observer of what we think and feel and believe. And he, without missing a beat, he's like, oh, they're total jerks.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay. So what does that make you in your own mind? What do you see? What do you think about yourself? Right? We go back to identity. He identified as a jerk if he shared something that was very unique to him because he thought he was talking about himself. Right?
Interesting.
And so we carry these beliefs with us throughout our lives. And the other key is most of them are formed before we're even 10 years old. So I don't know about you, but at 10, like, I couldn't figure out the meaning of what's what.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we just absorb these beliefs and they play out. They play out in loops in our life, and we get into self-sabotage and frustration, and we're constantly chasing after something that we don't even really know why we're chasing after it. Well, that's the work. That's the inner work. And there are questions and assessments and things we can do. And coaches really help with this because it's hard for us to see our own stuff.
Bingo. We tell it to people all the time. It's so easy to see other people. It's hard to see ourselves. And I find that a way to see yourself is to notice the things you see about other people. And usually that's what you see about yourself. Like, people are mirrors for us.
Yeah.
You know, if I think somebody's doing something or I'm annoyed or I'm triggered, I'm like, well, clearly I do that. That's like, it's such a bonus card, or the Joker in the deck, you know, it's such a joke.
Absolutely. It's like, that's my mirror. Okay. What's that showing me?
Yeah. I had this, David and I went and did some plant medicine. And one of the things that we discovered is that was an obvious thing for me, was noticing the negative things about myself all the time. And then I had this aha moment. It was like, well, it also works in the dual space. So the things that you find beautiful and positive and rewarding about people is also a reflection of how you feel good about yourself. Because I have a hard time receiving and compliments. I'm really uncomfortable, even though words of affirmation is like, I like good words, like poems or words of encouragement around my success, but like personal words, I get really uncomfortable. And so a way that I can see my strengths is when I notice them in other people, even though I put up a big block, you know. So it's a thing that works in both spaces, not just the negative. And so I'm trying to invite more light and love into myself, because I don't give it to myself, you know, like that undeserving, blah, blah, blah thing.
Yeah, I'm not worthy. Who's going to listen to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm confident and I know. Yeah. But you just get stuck sometimes in that space. And I love that you help people get unstuck. And if you want to help my husband get unstuck and do some psychotherapy on him, you know, perfect. He's perfect.
You're like, wait a minute. This is not where I thought this conversation was going.
He's perfect, which means I'm perfect. But, you know, David, do you want to go any deeper on some stuff? You want her to...
We're losing connection all of a sudden. I don't know what's happening.
Do you have any questions for her around any of that stuff so far? I don't mean to just take over since you're on that side.
No, you're good. I was just thinking, when you were talking about your work originally, when you were saying that you didn't have your own fulfillment, it reminds me of, it always sticks with me. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Tony Robbins said that. So when it comes to someone stuck in that monotonous, like 9 to 5 every day, and they're unhappy with their actual life, what's a good first step, you think, to figure out like why the balance is so far off? How did they get out of that rut in their personal life, yet they're making millions maybe in success? What's that first step?
Such a great question. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, if you have money, you're successful and you've got to be happy, right? And that's not the case for a lot of people. And the reason is like our definition of success, right? And so that's where I love working with folks, because sometimes when you ask them, well, what is your definition of success? What do you really want in life? That's actually two of the hardest questions for people to answer. Because again, we go back to the conditioning, right? Of what does success mean? Like for a lot of us, even if we're in 9 to 5, maybe we grew up wanting to be an artist. And our parents were like, yeah, that doesn't pay the bills. You got to do something practical with your life, right? So you end up in a 9 to 5, and maybe you're making money and you got the car and the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids. And like on the outside, everything, I don't know. Can you have 2.5 kids?
I know. I'm like, maybe a dog? Is it a dog? For a baby?
Right. It's not a dog.
For a child.
We get to that point where on the outside, it all looks good, right? But on the inside, we're not fulfilled, or we know there's another level for us and we're just sort of going through the motions and feel like we're running out of time. And so the biggest thing that I love working with folks on is really getting some clarity around what is the definition of success for you. If it's, I spend 10 hours a day at work and 2 hours in the car commuting and I barely see my family, but I got $1 million in the bank account, and that's your life, congratulations. There you go. You've made it. But if that's not your definition of success, and that's just a box you're checking because you think you're supposed to, right? You think, oh, I have to do these things. I should be. Anytime you say should or supposed to, check yourself. Because that means you're doing something out of obligation, not out of what you truly want in life. And so we've got to connect with our own personal definition of success and then create our pathway by design. Like our brain is already going to default to safety and security, right? That's a done deal for all of us. Like I know some people may not realize that, but you're like, why do I always look at the bad, right? Stefani, you said, I'm always, I start, I'm like, oh wait, no, I get to focus on the positive, right?
Yeah, it's a
Our
choice.
brain naturally goes that way because it's trying to just keep us safe. It's always searching for something that it determines as safe or unsafe, going to make us feel uncomfortable, or going to take a lot of energy to do. Like those are the three things for your brain. So if you take nothing else away from this conversation, like really just know your brain's job is not to make you happy and fulfilled, it's to keep you alive. And the way it does that is it filters, is something I'm looking at familiar to me and I know I haven't died from it yet? Okay, it's probably safe, right? But if it sees something, like you have a big goal, let's say you want to speak on an international stage, but you haven't done it before, right? Your brain is going to go, oh, heck no, we could fall off. We could forget what we're going to say. People are going to think we look ridiculous. Nuh-uh, not doing it, right? But that's just the inner talk trying to keep you in your comfortable box. That's
You're
not
so
where you're going
right.
to be fulfilled and happy.
I love to live outside of that box. Whenever someone says anything about fear, or if I'm afraid of something, I'm like, okay, I got to do it. Like I used to be so afraid of flying. So I jumped out of 3 airplanes. I was like, I got to do it. And that was the safest I felt because I had this parachute. And I was telling my husband, I got attacked by bees when I was 12 and I've been afraid of anything that buzzes by my face. Well, now we're beekeepers, which by the way, David got stung twice today and once yesterday.
Yeah, it literally one hit got me right on the nose, and then today, well, it's a whole big story
Well, go ahead,
because
share. We could talk about it.
Steph has a hive, and then we have a swarm box. So we caught another hive, which means we're about to get a second one. But her bees are a little pissy, which means that the queen is raising angry bees. So today she had to kill her queen so we can re-queen them. And when they're queenless, they're even extra pissy. So they were attacking me in the front yard, which they're not even supposed to be over there.
Oh my gosh. And you
I
still
walked in the
showed
house.
up.
Yeah, we had a guy come out today to give us, he was going to do some work around the house, and they were bopping us in the head in the front yard. And if you know anything about bees, they usually stay by their hive unless they're out foraging, and they have a whole GPS system. So they have jobs. They go out, they collect, they come home, they come out. And so the fact that the bees were in the front yard, knowing that we were a threat, not a good sign. So 1 comes, 2 comes, 3 comes, and I'm like, I'm going to go inside because bees are very sensitive to smell, and they know my smell because I was in the hive a couple days. They know me. I'm the invasive being. So I thought if I went in, I'd be okay. Well, David was still out there, and one of the bees landed on the guy's head that was out, and David, he swished him, right?
He flicked it off, yes.
Yeah. Don't do that. If a bee, and I know it's so hard because it's in our nature to want to flick or flail or run.
Yeah.
It's scarier for bees. They're like, I got to eat you even faster. So this guy swatted it. David said, get back in your car. And then David walks in the front door. He has 2 bees on his back. And he was like, get them off of me. And I didn't have enough time. I just panicked.
What you don't realize about Steph is that she doesn't want to hurt anything that's living. So I was like, just kill it. She's like, I was like, I'm sick and tired of you not wanting to kill these things. If it's in the house, kill it. And then finally I go, oh, it got me in the back. And then as she swats it, I go, oh, my shoulder just got hit. And then now there's 2 bees in the house just limping around. I'm like, you better step on those things.
Oh no.
When a bee stings you, they die because their stinger in their bottoms. Do you know that like their whole intestines comes out?
I didn't know that part. I just knew they die.
They like their whole body like gets out, and so that little stinger, it just keeps stinging. It keeps like injecting the, well,
Venom.
not venom. What would it be? Would it be venom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So it's continually it's like moving its way through its intestines out of the stinger. That's why they say take the stinger out. So they die. So to me, I thought, okay, if we continue to get stung by bees, that was 3 lives of a bee that died. My queen's 1 life. If I dethrone her and decapitate her, which was just really hard, I'm sacrificing 1 to save the whole hive. That's
True.
real math.
Yep. Yeah,
So
throw
I
'em
told
out.
I'm just hoping I turn into like B-Man or something by the end of this hive excursion we're on.
Yeah, I chopped her head off today. So now I'm queenless, which David was saying. The bees they know there's no queen, so they're going to start making a new one. It's just I've learned so much about this insect. I didn't know it would be so geeked out on it, but I love it. I don't like getting stung.
I'm just curious. How did you even say, okay, I think we're going to be beekeepers?
Yeah, great question. My mom, my family's in Tennessee, and my mom always wanted bees. So she got a hive. Then she ended up with 3, and I would suit up and I'd go in the hive with her, and I thought it was great. Her bees are calm. They're so friendly. They're making honey, which I love. They smell good. Like there's this whole thing. I was like, great, I'm going to do it. Well, the hive I got, by the way, there are different strains of bees. So one is a Russian bee. There's Italian, which are gentler. There's African bees, which are the assholes. I got stuck with the African one. And we don't have a lot of African DNA bees in Florida, but they're starting to pick up on. You can tell because you go in and like how our bees chase us to the front yard. That should not be happening as a beekeeper unless you have some Africanized DNA. So what some people do is just wipe out the entire hive. I don't want to do that. I think we can achieve kinder bees if we get a new queen because now her DNA and the genetics change when you introduce because she has all the eggs in her body. Mm-hmm. So it's a long-winded answer. My mom got into beekeeping. I loved it. We wanted to have a bunch of land, and like our thing is if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. So we ended up in Florida on a 1-acre lot instead of Tennessee on a 100-acre lot.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, I'm still getting my bees. I'm going to do it. So we have bees in our little backyard. We're in a community with kids and people. So we're in a subdivision. Luckily, it's not HOA. But we got the bees in the garden. I said, okay, I can settle down here for a little while. I can make this home.
Luckily, we've had them for over a year. I haven't been stung once. I think I've been stung 8 times in the last like 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, get this under control, please.
Yeah.
There's something going on. I don't know. It was the moon in a weird place or something. I don't know.
Maybe it was eclipse. I don't know. Well, wait, are you familiar with bees at all? Am I dorking you out on all this stuff?
No, I know enough. I've been stung. Don't want to do that again.
So they have what's called swarm. Do you know what swarm season is?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're in the swarm season. So they're repopulating themselves, right? They're splitting and they're repopulating. And when they do that, they don't have a queen because the queen will go with half the hive and leave the other half in there to make a new queen. And that's how they keep their genetics going. So they get pissy around this time in the spring. So people will see a swarm in a tree or like it'll land on their roof and they think they're being invaded by bees. But we just say sit tight for 48 hours. They're just trying to find their next home. Don't kill them. Don't exterminate them. Call a beekeeper. They'll come out. They'll extract them. But don't just spray them because if bees get out, they take that Terminex or whatever, that spray, and they plant it on. So then it affects all the bees within a 3-mile radius. And you can wipe out all your pollinators, which means you don't get flowers, you don't get food. Just
We need the bees. If we don't have the bees, we lose a lot of the things that we need in the world.
Yeah.
How many babies do they lay? And that's like the queen.
I don't know if this is true, a fact, so don't quote me, but I've been told 8,000 eggs a day. The queen can lay up to 8,000 a day. I don't think she usually does. I think it's like 8,000 in 3 days. But all of her eggs and all of her sperm stays in her body for up to 8 years. So she goes out and mates with as many drones as she can, comes back, and her only job is to lay eggs for the rest of her life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can have 100,000 bees in a box at a time, which is what we have.
So yeah, that's a lot of babies.
It's a lot of babies.
As a woman with babies, you have a daughter.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's a
segue
lot of
back on the
babies.
topic.
Yeah, please bring her back. 'Cause I'm going to talk about bees.
When you were talking about the incident where your daughter has a mean left hook, and today's day and age, as you know, probably medication is just the answer. Just give your kid medication. What kind of persuaded you, or what was the direction that pushed you to not want to go that medication route and actually just work with her and see what the problem is?
You know, I will say I'm not anti-medication either, right? I mean, we're not the people that are like, don't ever give anything. I just knew, I did a lot of research, and I had been following Dr. Amen's work, the brain health work, for a while, just reading and trying to figure out what's going on. And one of the things that really helped me go in that direction is discovering that there are 7 different types of ADD that they found in the brain scans, right? And I said, we don't know We don't know what it is that's causing this for her, because even like something else that her teachers had said to us, thankfully she'd been in the same place since she was 3 months, right? So through preschool into kindergarten. So they knew her, and they knew, they're like, this is not right. Like something is not jiving here. And so recognizing that there are 7 different types, I just thought, well, shoot, if we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall with some medication, what if it doesn't work? What if it makes it worse? Right? And so I just thought, let's do as much as we can to see what's actually happening so that we can make the right choice for her. Right. And I feel like that was a big part of even just the process of what I do now with people is it's curated, right? This one size fits all. It doesn't fit all, because we're all very different. And even with her, like I could see immediately she was remorseful. Like she knew this was not what I wanted to do. She tried so hard to not lash out. But once she could realize, and we showed her, I mean, even at 6 or 7, we could show her brain and go, hey, honey, all your doors are open all the time. Because she'd tell me, she says, Mom, I feel crazy in the brain. And I said, what does that mean? You feel crazy? She's like, I just feel like there's so much. Well, come to find out, she has ring of fire, which meant all doors are open all the time. So she's expending a lot of energy to try to close the doors in her mind, to try to focus. And it's just maxing her out, right? From the inside out. And so I think from that perspective, it just was, okay, we started doing some techniques with her, like breathing and counting and some natural remedies just to help her be in more control of herself, right? And I feel like that, now that I'm talking, I don't think I've ever talked about it from this perspective, but I think the whole notion of like leading well from the inside out, that's where that came from for me.
And what better person to start with than a child's mind? Because if you can explain it to a child, you can explain it to anybody.
Right.
So it probably enhanced your communication with your audience as well, because if you can help her understand, then you can help that wide range spectrum of people's brains.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. And
Was it
again,
hard
you don't have to do the scan for it, but
Was it hard in the beginning to get her to understand what you were doing, why you were doing it?
oh yeah, back then it was LOL dolls were all the rage. So we bribed her. We totally bribed her. But we explained to her too, she was deathly afraid of needles, and they need to do a dye to see what's happening. And so that part she wasn't so keen on. But we just explained to her, we said, honey, this is really going to help us understand how to help you, right? And for you to be able to help yourself anytime you want to. And so I really am thinking back, I'm like, how does a 6 or 7-year-old even comprehend this? But she did, to whatever level she can, right, at that age. And I can see that it has really played out well for her in the long run, because she still struggles in school sometimes. I mean, she gets her letters slipped back, and, you know, she still has the focus situation, but she doesn't have any of the impulse that she did before. None. She's very highly emotionally attuned to people, right? And I think it really helps you when you understand how you are uniquely wired. There's 2 sides to it. There's, I struggle in this area. Oh, but look, it's given me this gift that I get to bring to the world that other people don't have in the same way that I do, right? And I think us being able to connect to ourselves in that way, to understand our gifts that we bring to the world, it is a gift. And it's a gift that a lot of us don't give ourselves, so we can't give it to other people.
How cool that you give her self-awareness at such a young age, when most people don't even get that self-awareness until their deathbed sometimes.
Right.
She's a step ahead.
Yeah.
You gave her tools, and it's really cool. I love that you did that, and that you chose a route instead of medicating that could have potentially lit that fire.
Well, and I think it would have masked some other things, right? And so really getting at the root of what's going on, I liken it to pulling the weed out, right? And I'll share even just from my own perspective, because some people can probably resonate with this, sales was a struggle for me. Not because I don't see value in what I bring to people, like all day, every day. I love it, right? But for me, I had this connection internally, again, an internal wiring and conditioning, that sales meant a transactional relationship, not a generative relationship. And I couldn't understand what was going on for me. And so I actually took a page out of the book with my daughter, and I was like, okay, I get to look at what's happening in here and see what is it that's keeping me from fully stepping into the business, right? So, and we do, I love this process. We do a story process throughout your life. So we work with people to map the story of their life, because the peaks and valleys that you've had throughout your life and the way that you've come out of those says so much about who you are and how you are in the world and what your gifts are. And so for me, what I realize is I come from a very long line of military and government family. Like, not entrepreneurs, not people who are thinking in the sales perspective, right? And so for me, I realized I had this meaning to sales that if somebody was going to pay me money for what I'm doing, they might be thinking, gosh, is she showing up for me just because I'm paying her? Or is she showing up for me because she really cares? Both can be true. Like, both and, right? And when I say about the weed, that's what it was for me. It was like every time a conversation with money came up, it was like I'd have to cut the weed off, manage it, and keep it down. Like, stop, this is ridiculous. Why am I feeling this way? I know that there's value here. That takes a lot of energy to have to manage these things that come up all the time that are invisible to us. But when we can make it visible and rip that weed out at the root and it doesn't grow back anymore, that is freedom. That is when you are free to go and do and be whatever. And you don't have to spend all the energy managing this internal stuff all the time.
Do you have anything for it? Yep. So do you deal with a lot of people in imposter syndrome? Tell me everything.
Yes. Yes. And myself included, right? I
Uh-huh.
think we all do. We all do. Like, you have this big dream and this big idea and you have wisdom to share. And the very first thing that's going to happen in your mind is, well, who's going to listen to me? I'm just little old me. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Who am I to do that? Right? But here's the thing about imposter syndrome, which I love, because around the brain health and the neuroencoding, like the software and the programs that play out in our mind, all imposter syndrome is you expanding into a bigger space that is unfamiliar to your brain, right? Your brain is like, whoa, that's way bigger than I'm familiar with. And I don't know what's on the other side of that. So no. And then you're fighting against it. You're like, nope, I'm going to show up. So you kind of borrow the persona of somebody else, or you act like, no, I act like you belong, right? The whole term, act like you've been there. But we're not imposters. We're showing up as ourselves. We're the person showing up. Like, nobody else is showing up for me. It's me. And so we're actually digging in and finding great courage within ourselves to show up in a space that we find uncomfortable. That's all we're doing, right? And that's where growth happens. So now when I start to feel the imposter syndrome, I've reframed what it means, because that's what drives everything for us, the meaning we give things. So some of us, most of us, think imposter syndrome means, oh, I'm not ready. I don't have what it takes. That's too big for me. That's not true. What it actually means is run into it faster, because that's your growth. That is your space. You're gonna feel the resistance because it's unfamiliar, not because you are not ready. You are ready.
It's a good perspective. I think we deal with imposter. I think everybody does. If somebody says they haven't, they're lying. And I always give the example, like, everybody knows The Rock. I worked with The Rock at one point on a Disney show, and I remember thinking, he's so big and he's so cool and he's such like a profound presence, and he was so insecure. at the moment, at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, I got to see, because I had created him to be who this persona was. But when the camera stopped rolling, he was like, was that good? Was that okay? Do we need to do it again? And I was like, oh my gosh, you doubt yourself too. You're a human being. But we only see, have you seen the J-Lo documentary?
No.
Did you watch that yet?
I'll have to go and do it.
It's good. What I really liked about what I took away from that, you know what, J-Lo's J-Lo, she's a queen, but I got to see her human side. I got to see her as the boss, with her presence that she steps in. I got to see her have imposter syndrome, which to me was this vulnerable, beautiful moment where I was like, J-Lo, the queen of queens, goes through the same thing in her business. No one's going to watch her film. No one's going to buy her album. No one's going to buy her tickets. I'm like, whoa, this is somebody who is an icon, and she goes through it too. And it just, I think if more people could talk about it and be vulnerable and share, we would not maybe feel so alone. But we're painted these perspectives of what these influencers are and who they are, but we don't know anything about them. We don't know their struggles, but we go through them too. Everybody does.
Yeah, we all do. And I mean, self-doubt, self-critical, self-talk, imposter syndrome, all of that. Everybody has it. It doesn't matter what the persona is from the outside. Everyone deals with that at some level. And I mean, the reality is, unless you're just going to sit on your couch and eat bonbons and your fluffy socks all day and do nothing, like, you're going to have to step outside your comfort zone. Yeah. Right? And that's when imposter syndrome is going to come up the biggest. Right? I mean, and I think, like, that's the thing is, if we can just remember when that resistance comes up, whatever you want to call it, that is just an indication that you're about to do something really big.
I love that.
And you're ready for it, or else you wouldn't be facing it in the first place.
I love it. Before you went to the Great American, did you get your golden ticket from Stages or from Great American Speak, or from a virtual?
From virtual. I did the virtual audition, yeah.
Okay, so for people who don't know, Tina and I did this stage competition. It was a Grant Cardone and Pete Vargas competition, and they picked the top, 30 out of 5,000? Oh, no, I'm sorry. How many were there?
120, well, 125 showed up, so yeah,
out of
30,000
auditions.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to narrow it down to the best speakers. And I don't know about you, but did you have any doubts along the way going to Stages or doing the virtual or you're like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And then you got the golden ticket that passed you to the next.
Oh my gosh, yes. I want to hear your story about this, because I think all of us, I'm maybe not all, but most of us are probably in that boat. And I will share, the night before the virtual audition, I actually wasn't even going to do it. Because I had it in my mind, like, what the heck am I going to say? Well, I've been speaking for literally 20 years. Mm-hmm. And different topics, right? But still, speaking for 20 years. So it's not like it's that new to me. But I was like, same thing. What the heck am I going to share in 1 minute or 2 minutes? It's going to make a difference for anybody. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I literally went to dinner by myself the night before. And I found this cute little spot that I've never found in our town. And I just sat down, I got a hot drink and a meal. And I was like, okay, if I was going to share anything with the world, what would I want it to be? And I just started writing. And it came to me. I was like, I'm going to show up and I'm just going to do this thing and we'll see what happens.
You wrote your speech the night before?
The night before.
My gosh, you're amazing.
Well, because I didn't want to come in with some canned thing. Of course, we have to 1 minute or 2 minutes. Like, it's hard to get it all in there, right? Mm-hmm. But it was honestly, and this is so fascinating for me, the first time in my life that I feel like I showed up just because it's something I wanted to do and I wasn't trying to be perfect. Mm-hmm. So,
girl, we should
want to hear you.
I think David should tell the story.
What you going to?
Stages.
Well, originally Steph was signing up for all the sales and marketing stuff with Grant Cardone, and Stages was listed, and we're doing the podcast stuff. So she wanted to be good at presenting and talking.
Yeah.
I had to shove her out the door to go to the Stages. She was for 3 or 4 days straight talking herself out of going. Mm-hmm. She's like, I don't know, the hotel's this much. Should I drive? Should I fly? Is it even worth it? Should I just do virtual stuff? And And finally, she's like, she just finally left. And she called me day or two later, talking about how much fun she's having and tearing these groups. And then she started figuring out that we're making speeches. And she didn't even know, I guess this would be more on your part, but she called me and she's like, apparently I'm like top 100 of these, like all these people in this room, whatever that means. And they put us in groups, and then you can tell the rest from here.
Yeah. I think before I left, my flight was delayed. My other flight was canceled. I tried to call the hotel and cancel my room. I was like, well, I'm not going to get there until 3 a.m. I have to be at the event at 7 a.m. I was like, what am I doing? These are signs that are telling me not to go. And David's like, no, maybe there's signs telling you to go. And I was like, no. And I was frustrated, and I was like, I'm going to miss my layover. And I was so triggered and grumpy and I was being like a toxic tornado. And I was like chewing out the people at the front desk at the airport. I'm like, I'm not going to get my flight. I don't know. I just was spiraling. I'm not really chewing them out. I'm from the South. We do that passively. But
Your version of.
Did as I dropped her off at the airport to leave, I remember her being like, just pull over in the cell phone lot for a second. She literally called the hotel to cancel as I was dropping her off, because she's like, the flight's delayed another hour. I'm going to call and cancel the hotel. And they were like, it's non-refundable. I was like, looks like you're going. And she hopped out right there, because it was all the way till that last minute.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, David, I don't like to fly. What if this is a sign my plane's going to crash? I mean, I was trying to get out of it in every way possible. I was like, you're dropping me off, and if my plane crashes, you're going to regret this. I mean, I'm telling you, it was not my best moment. And we go to stages, and I just said, whatever. I was like, I'm going to do it. I even checked in at the Cardone. I was like, yeah, I'm here. And then they threw us into this stage thing. I was like, I have to speak, and I'm not prepared. And I'm like you, I'm a perfectionist. It's got to be perfect. And I got up there and did it in my group, and I thought I'd tanked it. I was like, that sucked.
I was in your group. You did not tank it.
Well, in the stages, in the workshop. Were you at my workshop?
Oh, in the workshop.
Right?
No, I wasn't in your workshop.
And I was like, I tanked it. And then my name came up. Everybody voted. And I was like, no freaking way. Again, perfectionist mindset. So then we have to do it in front of everybody and check these boxes. And I was like, I blacked out. It's like, that sucked. And then I sat down in my seat, and this thing started happening where I was like, I think I sucked, but also I think I just won. And I was like, don't be humble. It's fine. And then this thing was, that boiling, some people call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it whatever. It was just there. And I called David. I said, I think I'm going to win this thing. I think I'm going to win it. And then the next day they announced the winner. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go with it. I was like, I have to go and do this again now. I just talked myself out of it. So then getting to the top 15 and like competing, I learned this really crazy experience. I had got Grant and Elena, and I don't know about you, but I started feeling moments with Pete where I was like, it doesn't feel authentic when he was speaking. And I love Pete.
I do too.
And I was like, it wasn't resonating with me when he was speaking in front of everybody there. And guess what? Grant and Elena told me I didn't feel authentic. So talk about a mirror. I got to see what they were seeing in me through Pete. So whether Pete was showing up authentically or not, it wasn't the point. The point was I had to see how I wasn't showing up authentically myself. And I'm up here talking about fear and facing fears, and I'm still hiding behind my own fear. And it was this like blah, 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 blah thing where I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest experience ever. And next year I'm coming back as me, and let's see what happens. Let's just see.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like I was writing my speech the whole way down there. I'm like, I don't know what to freaking say. I don't know.
Yeah.
David recorded it 2 hours. It took us to record my 1 minute speech because like it's got to be perfect. And it was so perfect and so polished that I didn't get a chance to be seen.
Yes.
And that was my biggest note. Thank God for Grant. He gave me the biggest lesson for free. By the way, that event was free.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. We don't want the secret out. We want to keep it free. But I want to hear about your perfectionism stuff that came up for you, because you made it really far. Your speech was really impactful. I loved it. Tell us what you talked about and what you faced coming up with it.
Well, I love hearing your story because honestly, that is my story too. I was it literally took me at least 2 or 3 hours to record the little 2-minute thing. And I was changing things even the day before I was changing things. I was like, it's got to be perfect. And what I failed to realize is the whole reason I think that I made it through was because I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was just showing up that day going, we'll see what happens. So just like what you said, it's like the perfectionism gets in our way. And it doesn't allow people to really see who we are. And I even that morning was like, okay, get back in your body. I have a tendency to get in my head, right? And I'm like, no, get back in your body. Just be, enjoy it. And I still had this, like, there's a wall here, like, because I have to deliver.
Uh-huh.
And there's a very different feeling of I have to deliver to I'm just going to share something with you.
Right.
And we create that in ourselves, but it resonates with other people because we give off energy. Right. And I could already feel, like, when I was having one-on-one conversations with our team, like our group together, it was like magic. The minute that I was on stage, I got that feeling of I have to deliver. And it felt so incongruent with who I am. The words were coming out exactly as they were on the page, right? But not from my heart.
Right. Yeah.
And so same with you. I'm like, forget it. Next year, I'm just going to show up and be like, what do I want to talk about today?
Do you think that maybe we perceive ourselves as not being like who we are? We have to be somebody else, which I know that doesn't really, okay, let me back up because I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but we maybe mask ourselves and try to show up as something powerful when we just are powerful. And if we just show up versus showing up, trying to be something. I wasn't trying to be something. My story was real. Like all of that, mine, like one little shift just because I needed to be the hero in my own story. I get that. But there was a moment where I wanted to make my story mean something to me when I was speaking. So it would trigger me to feel something. And I really felt like I had purpose. But again, it was so perfect to the script. Like I was so focused on memorizing every word, not to mess up, as opposed to letting the story just flow. Letting the story be my story, I turned it into the story on paper. Does that make sense?
Not the story from your heart and your authenticity. And that's what people resonate with.
Right.
They resonate with your authenticity, not the words that you say. But, and it, in all honesty and in fairness too, 1 minute, 2 minutes, like it's hard to get it down into that, time frame. And, we had some other times that were either 30 seconds or 70 seconds or like whatever. And so, and that's great to throw us in. And what it showed me is that I wasn't fully trusting who I am.
Yes.
I was trying to say what was on the paper, and no, that's not the point.
No.
And I'm a courageously authentic leadership coach. I was like, okay, the irony here is like slapping me in the face. Like, what is going on? Right? But we get triggered about things. And I realized for me, like I go back to the conditioning because 20 years in the military and every job that I had, I was the mouthpiece or the face or the tour guide or like the speaker. Like I was always the person who shared what we're doing with the world. And so I was on all the time. And that's not the time to be on. When you're on, people are watching a performance. They're not watching you.
Right. And you can tell, like when you listen to people on stages, you either connect with what they're saying or you don't. Yeah. And the biggest fear, and that's probably why Grant was so intentional about who he put on the stage. It needed to be somebody who could just wing it.
Right.
But also still stay within the boundaries of the structures that they present for stages.
Yeah. Well, and I love that we're having this conversation because there's such an ebb and flow, right? And a give and take. Because even like for me growing up in the military, it was always be amazing, but not too amazing. Right? Do great things, but don't outshine somebody else. Right? It was always do really, really well, yet still remain humble. There was this like, I liken it to like, so lead outside the lines. I feel like there's a box, like we put ourselves in boxes.
Yeah.
And there were so many times that I would feel like I was pressing out against the box and I just wanted to break out. I'm like, nope, don't get too big. And you come back in. Right. And so there is an ebb and flow. And sometimes we just got to go, I am who I am. And if that's too big, it's too big. Too bad. Right. And just be.
Yeah. And we're taught as kids to color in the lines. Stay within these walls. Stay within these boundaries.
Yes.
I think that would be kind of a fun part for your story. Everyone can relate to that. Color within the lines.
I love it. And you know, it's so funny. My dad was military too, right? 20 years in the Air Force. And then he retired and civil service in the Air Force for another 20 years as a civilian. But he was a director of marketing. And even when he was in uniform, he used to have these 2-foot plastic crayons that hung from the ceiling in his office. And when people would come in, they're like, blah, 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 you know, complaining, not having solutions or whatever. He would point up to the ceiling and he's like, turn around, come back in when you can color outside the lines and figure out a solution. Right.
Great idea.
So even inside this bureaucratic structure, so I guess I get it, honestly. My dad was like, look, color outside the lines. It's the only way that you're going to make what you want happen. And it's true. It's true. But we get stuck, right? We get stuck in the box.
You have an authentic alignment code.
Yeah.
You take people down this path of, is it authenticity alignment code? What do you call? I don't want to butcher it.
I call it your authentic alignment code.
Yeah, tell us about that, because I think there's something really cool behind this movement you're doing.
Yeah, I love it because there's aha moments that go on when people go down this path. And so what we do is we help them basically pull together their MVPs and their VIPs, right? So we talk about first the structure. So your mindset, your psychology, values, and strengths, the things that really make you who you are, right? We get clear on what those are, and we have a process that we pull certain things out of that. And then we look at the clarity around your VIPs, your vision of the world and what you want to create in the world, your identity, right? And it's not just you, it's how you see others and how you see the world and your place in it. Because we can only get as big or grow into the identity that we hold for ourselves, right? And then we get really clear on purpose. And I love what you said about looking at other people, because there's this exercise that I love. It comes from Aisha Barcel. She specializes in designing the life you love. She's fascinating. She's one of my mentors. And she has this, she's so great. She has this process that I use with my clients too, about figuring out what your purpose is by looking at what you value in other people, your purpose and your values, right? And then it's your definition of success. So we pull all of that together in a systematic process to design your authentic alignment code. It becomes your North Star. So no matter what decisions you're trying to make, no matter what you're trying to create in the world, you always have your North Star to go back to. And that keeps you on the aligned path for where you truly want to be in your life and who you are. Because we think that burnout, overwhelm, and chronic stress comes from I got so much on my plate, my calendar. It isn't. It's because you're out of alignment with who you truly are and what matters most for you. That is where the burnout comes from, because we try so hard to put the face on, right? How much energy did it take for you at the Speak Off to show up as the person who gets it right on paper?
Oh my God. I got home and I don't know if I got COVID or the flu, but I went through, I think you and I were like, the drive home, I was like, something's not good. I was in bed for 10 days and I had a cough for 6 weeks. I was like, I must have really given my all.
Yeah.
But in the future, how can I give my all and also hone in that energy a little bit for me? Because I was giving it so much that I think I just depleted. I wore myself out.
She gave so much that she gave it to me too.
What's mine is yours, babe. It's called marriage. Come on.
Sharing.
Sharing is caring. Yeah, I know. But the whole drive home, I was working on my next speech. I was like, and I was reworking and talking. I was talking to myself for 9 hours. And I was calling everybody like, how does this sound? How does this? I was just on this high. I was like, oh my God. And then I hit the low.
Then you crashed.
But also the angst, that anxiety of, or that doubt that I don't know what's going to, or the unknown. Maybe it was more the unknown. Let me rephrase that. It was the space of the unknown, because we went into 5 different rooms and you don't know what the room is going to be. You don't know the questions they're going to ask you. You don't know how long you get to speak. You don't know anything. And so talk about really having to know what you're talking about. Like they test you. Are you an imposter? If you don't think that imposter syndrome kicks in, go through this 5-step Speak Off. Because you're going to doubt yourself. At least for me, I doubted myself. I didn't even talk to David for 2 days. I was like, I don't have the energy. I was just so tapped out.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
She talked to me, but only in minute segments.
What did I sound like?
You would say, I was on a boat with orcas and I have fear. And it would be a speech. That's what I mean by you would only
Words
speak
of
to
the
me.
speech.
You would only speak to me in 1 minute segments. Then you'd say, did it fit in 60 seconds? And I'd have a timer and be like, no, 10 seconds over. She's like, darn it. And I would hear 3 hours later, and then she'd be back for 1 minute.
Oh yeah, I would make David set a timer. I was like, I don't know. I think the next stream is 30 seconds or 45 seconds. I'm only getting what people are saying. I was so just.
I know. But see,
I'm a control person. I felt out of control.
exactly.
Is that what you were going to say?
And in that environment, that's the thing. We weren't in control of it. That was the moment to just let whatever was going to come through, and let it be. And that's
Let
not
ourselves come
easy
through.
to do. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, I'm a perfectionist, control freak. I don't want to be seen. I want everything to be perfect so you don't see me. And I had to be seen, and it was terrifying and beautiful and so much fun.
Yeah. The
Thank God.
vulnerability can be terrifying, but it is the way through.
Yes. Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I, we think we've been through it. Like we might go, oh, I'm good. Yeah, I've been vulnerable in this situation and I'm confident, I'm fine. We get hit with a completely different situation and it helps us expand. Like, even though that my performance, see, I'm even going to say it, the way I showed up,
Did.
damn, the way I showed up on that day was not what I would like to do in the future. Right? And it was such a blessing for me to be able to have that experience, knowing I didn't make it all the way. I didn't make it to grand stage, totally fine, because I really feel like I got what we needed. Yeah, we did. That was great. Top 2%.
Yeah,
I mean, you were in the top 1% because you went even further.
But you made it real far, girl. Come on now.
Yeah. And I'm happy. I'm totally happy about it. And at the same time, I feel like I got exactly what I needed. Because I think you and I talked a little bit earlier too, not on the show, but before, about how like something that day like helped break the shackles off. Like there was something about going through that process the way that we did that I feel it too. Like it literally just whatever little shell was still around me, like, nope, let me protect and let me show up the certain way. I feel like that got cracked that day. And it just gets to fall away.
I love that. And I think everybody in the group went through that. Like we all went through this initiation of, and I don't remember if was it Danielle, somebody was like, I was stretched. And I was like, that is the perfect way of explaining it. Stretch. And when you think you've stretched as much as you can, that rubber band's like, add a little bit more. You're not going to break, but we're just going to keep stretching this elasticity. How much more can you give?
Exactly. How much more is in there?
David, what about you? Do you have any vulnerable things that have come up for you in the last few weeks you want to share? Vulnerability?
No, not at all.
You lie like a dog.
But what I was going to say is what I'm kind of picking up from this is, and I do agree with getting out of the box, being uncomfortable, or be comfortable being uncomfortable. So in you guys getting on stage, getting stretched, having this vulnerability, would you almost say that being uncomfortable in life promotes growth and it almost helps you grow as a person and feel more alive?
That's when you grow.
Yeah.
You don't grow when you're comfortable. And I think a lot of us, we try to stay inside of our little capacity circle, like our little growth circle, because it's comfortable. But that's not when it's going to expand. It's not when you're going to grow, right? You're not learning anything about yourself doing the same old thing you always do. So I don't know about for you, Stefani, but I feel like that experience was super, super growth, like in a super short amount of time. And yeah, it was just putting ourselves in those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
It takes courage to do it.
Oh my gosh, yes. Where have you been uncomfortable that you had to feel comfortable in recently or within?
A lot of days with my wife.
Are perfect. That
We are a great combination, I think, the two of us, for business purposes, because it's like she was saying, back here it's all techie camera stuff. Like you want it done, put together. I got it. I do the video and photo, and she goes out there and does the speaking and the facing stuff. Because when we met, she was an actress. She was on camera and I was behind camera. So that's kind of where we started our duo.
Yeah.
But every day, if we're ever approaching something business-wise or going somewhere, she's like, talk to that person or go there. I'm like, I don't want to. And she's like, she shoves me through the door. She's the type that's like, David has something to say. I'm like, no, I don't. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome. So stuff like that. But on more of, I guess, a personal level with just my things that I'm into, like martial arts, jujitsu, I train in boxing. And it's like that right there is getting very comfortable in uncomfortable situations, like a grown man holding you down, like, all right, find a way out. So I'm more in a physical way, but that's how I connect these dots, definitely on a martial arts level, because the whole basis is being comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
David's one of those people that can just speak, and it's so natural for him. He's just like blah 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 blah, and it's cool. I have to like sit here and it's just more difficult. You think it's easier for me, but it actually takes more work, where for you it just flows.
But it doesn't seem like it takes more work, though.
Not anymore. Not until like you said, I cracked that shell, man.
It doesn't take work.
Yeah.
She's a natural. The difference is, I think she's in her head half the time while speaking. So she starts digging holes and going in a weird direction. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, nothing. I'm just going to keep going until now I'm uncomfortable. Let's change the subject.
One of the things I'm working on right now is, I think like you were saying, we repress that power and within ourselves. Don't be too big. I have a lot of energy, and I have this burning power, not an STD, just because I know you're going to say something. I know him. I know you so well.
Calling you out ahead of time.
I have to, because he's going to come
I
back.
have a burning power.
I told you.
You made it like that. No, it'd be different if you said like I have an itching power, but no, like you're okay.
Okay. I have a. Either way, there's this energy that comes up where I'm like, okay, don't be too big. Don't, let other people shine. But in turn, I'm putting my own flame out.
Yes.
And so this year, and I really think that Speak Off event was really helpful to help me, because I was coming out of a burnout. All full transparency, I was in almost a year burnout, and I'm a massive action taker, a massive doer, and I'll be an extremist where I'll do so much that I have to come back the other side and really give myself that rest. So I was just coming out of this insane burnout where I just didn't have inspiration. I was like, same thing. I don't want to go to the Great American Speak Off. Well, I went, and it just reignited the flame. I was like, okay, it's not that I'm in a burnout because I don't know what to do. I'm just not allowing myself to do the things I want to do. I'm talking myself out of them, that imposter syndrome, or waiting for the right time. Oh, screw that. I can create it.
Do it. Exactly.
I don't have to wait for the right time. Granted, I know there's a timing aspect to it. But if I'm going to speed that dial up a little bit, and I might fail 10 times because it's not the right time, you better believe I'm going to learn something those 10 times along the way. And just shifting that, and the more I'm in my lane of intention of what it is I want to do, and asking hard questions, because I hold back because I think I don't want to be too much. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't want to talk about somebody, or I don't want to poke you and push you and stretch you. But that's where I'm good. I can stretch people, and I don't want to hold myself back on helping other people, especially when we're doing, marketing and consulting. And I'm going to ask hard questions, because asking those hard questions is going to help other people get to the depths of themselves. When we're on camera and someone's like, hey, yeah, I sell this table. Well, who cares? I don't care. How is that table going to help me? So I make people uncomfortable now, because that's what's pushing them. And we're going to save months of time and hours of filming. Let's just get down to it. What is it you want to say?
Exactly.
So I'm not a coach like you. I'm not as gifted in that realm, but I'm learning to use my own gifts of communication and not hiding behind that thing that can push up against people to make them uncomfortable. Because like you're saying, that uncomfortability is what is going to push them.
Yeah.
It's a very long-winded explanation here, but.
Well, and I'm going to challenge you on that too then, because you said I'm not a coach like you. Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, you're
What
right.
you're doing with people.
Yeah, you're right.
You're helping them go beyond where they're comfortable. You're helping them see possibilities beyond what they can currently see. Right? And you are stretching them in a space where they want to go, but maybe don't know the pathway, right? They don't know how to get to that next level. And sometimes they can feel it there, but they can't see it. You help make the invisible visible.
Yeah. But as a woman, and I'm not labeling this as a woman thing, but there's a fine line of being a B word and being
Oh, for
firm.
sure.
And I tread that line. I used to be more fearful about what that looked like. And I would say something and then I would go home to Dave and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. I feel bad. Was this okay? And I get in my head as opposed to just saying, I said it. I said it because I feel it and I believe it. And I trust myself for saying it. And if I said it out loud to somebody else, there's a reason for it. Or just owning it, like owning that part of myself that I keep denying.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe is that what you're talking about when you're like, I should have said that. I shouldn't have done that.
I don't know. You do that all the time. Every day she talks to me. It's like, should I have said that? I'm like, what? You said it. Who cares? You're not talking crap about anybody. She'll ask, like she said, tough questions. Every conversation Steph has with, whether it's a friend or anyone close with her or even a business, she wants to go deep on every conversation. She's not the surfacey type.
Yeah.
Like zero surfacey, which is why you're talking to her now. She's like, she rips Band-Aids off and she'll go straight to like, whether it's trauma or just like the reasons you do something, or they sell a table. Okay, cool. We're marketing your company. Who are you? Why did you start building these tables in your garage? Where did you get this reclaimed wood? Like she wants the depths of everything. And sometimes people freeze up because they don't want to answer that stuff. But then afterwards, they're so thankful because Steph is a coach in that aspect. She does stretch them. She does camera coaching. She gets them comfortable. But I don't know. She's in her own head when she comes home and asks, should I have said that? I'm like, of course you should say it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if
because I'm not going to say it.
He'll say it. You'll say it to me. But I think I really want this conversation to be about you. I'm sorry, I'm reflecting it back to me here.
It's about people taking away what they need to hear, and somebody needs to hear that.
Yeah, I think sometimes I have worn this mask of empath, and I'm learning what that really means. People who are empathic, I believe, have had to pay extra attention to people's behaviors, maybe because we felt unsafe at certain parts. So you really read people. And I used to wear that as a badge of honor. I can read you, and I can read people really well. I see when I have your attention. I see when I don't. I see when you're happy. I see when you're sad. If you're smart, I can see behind it because I've had to train myself. That's what protected me, knowing how people are, if they're going to be angry when they come home, if they're going to be, just trauma stuff that I've dealt with. Yeah. So for me, sometimes when I see that on someone's face, that's what makes me doubt myself. I'm like, okay, I pushed too far, as opposed to, all right, I pushed too far. Let's keep going. And so that's my battle. And so I'm trying to trust myself more.
Yeah. I think that is the journey for everyone. It's the journey for all of us because we make meaning about that, right? So when you're seeing something on someone's face and you're like, oh, did I push too far? That's not in the moment. That is associated to something that happened, probably a pattern of some things that have played out for you in your life, right? And so now you're like, oh, is that okay? Well, in the moment, it's probably totally fine. But we bring our past into the present and the expectation of the future, right? And that plays out for us too. And so we get to trust ourselves because when we're in our head and we're trying to figure it out, we can't trust ourselves. It's when we can feel into it. And you said, I'm an empath, right? You can feel emotion, you can sense emotion, you can see how people are. And we can use that to, and I used to say this, situational awareness is always good. However, if you feel like you have to come in and read everything to decide how you are supposed to show up, that's different than being in the space, owning your space, and being able to read the room and decide, right? There is a difference in that.
You're right. That's a good point.
So situational awareness is great, but we don't need to use it to hide parts of ourselves. Right. And when I know for me, when I get in, I did not fully step in to being a coach for a long time because I was fine talking on stage, but being a coach, you got to hold some pretty uncomfortable space for folks. And I always ask, hey, I'm noticing something. Can I share something with you? Are you open to a question? right? Because I don't ever want to be like, yeah, right in your face, because then they're like, wait, what? But
I'm not ready for that.
get away from me. Right. But if you can open it and they go, no, yeah, I want to hear that. Your job is to hold some hard space, right? And to ask some hard questions. But when you can invite them into a safe container to do that, it is amazing what can happen. It's when they feel attacked or they feel like, oh, I'm not in a safe space to be able to open this up, that it gets bad. But when you have that way, and you have this way about you without even having to say, are you okay with me sharing this? You have this openness about you that people want to have you hold that space for them and with them. Right. And so when you're looking outside at them, wondering, what are they thinking of me because I asked this question in this way, flip it. What became possible for them because I asked this question in this way?
Oh, that's so good. Can I just put you in my pocket and have you just drop little nuggets of gold on my day to day, break my pattern? You find being a coach, did you find when you first started being a coach that did people ever say, stop coaching me right now? And now you're like, coach me, did you have that balance with friends and family?
Yes.
Like you're working on this dialogue and you're like, stop coaching me.
Yes. Well, it's not like a plumber, right? I mean, if I come over to your house and we're sitting on the couch and I start working in your toilet, I mean, you're like, okay, yeah, stop working, right? But when we are just having a conversation as friends, like over coffee or something, and I see something, like I get to be more aware all the time of, oh, I feel like I want to put my coaching hat on. That's not why they're asking to be with me right now, right? We're not together for me to coach. So if I notice something, I might bring it up and go, hey, I'm noticing something from with the coach hat on, but I can save it for later. And most of the time they'll be like, no, I want to know what's going on. What are you seeing?
Yes. Yeah. Tell me, what do you mean?
And then
you tell them, they're like, no.
don't tell me, I don't want to know.
I know. Remember Chris Kattan from Saturday Night Live? Am I dating myself? Where he's like, get out. They'll come back. Get out. Come back. Such a fun moment.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing though. People get to be who they are. And just because we're coaches, that doesn't mean we have to be that all the time. But it does take feeling comfortable enough with yourself to hold uncomfortable space. And that was a big thing for me. I didn't want to make people uncomfortable. I've spent my whole life trying to make people happy, making everything okay, right? It's part of what burnt me out in the first place.
Really?
Oh gosh, yeah. I grew up feeling like my job in life is to make everything okay for everybody. That's my job. And that's not realistic. And it's not my job. And I came to think of it this way too, like, how arrogant of me to think that I can come in and make everything okay. Like, what, do I have some magic wand because I'm fairy godmother? No, I get to just be me and connect. And if there's something that's in my heart to do, great. But if I am showing up like that because I feel like I have to prove something to people, or I feel like it's my job to do these things, that's taking away from other people's ability to own their stuff, right? To do what they need to do, to become who they need to become or want to become. And so it's taken a lot of reframing from my own conditioning, and not from anything bad. Like my mom was that way. My mom handles everything. She is amazing. She is the woman who just, stuff's going to heck in a handbasket. She pulls it all together and makes it perfect, smells like roses, and it's pink and glittery. I mean, that's my mom. So I grew up, right, with that imprint on me. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with my mom. She's a brilliant woman. Love her. She's a heart of gold. She did the very best she knew how to do in every situation she was in. But that didn't need to be my story. right? And a lot of times we just pick up what we learn. We learn what we live, right? We live what we learn.
What would you say to someone who's in a similar situation, trying to do it all? You know, a lot of women, a lot of moms, a lot of wives, a lot of husbands, a lot of dads, working, not working, trying to balance all the balls. What advice would you give somebody who's doing it all and is just burnt out?
I'm thinking of clients I'm working with right now, and it's why? For what? That's really where to start. What are you trying to create? Right? Because a lot of times we get into the cycle and we don't even realize that we're on overdrive all the time. And when we can stop long enough, really just connecting back to that authentic alignment code, right? Getting clear on who I am, what's important to me, what do I ultimately want to create in the world, and why? Why that over something else? And what experience am I trying to create? Because if you're burnt out, burning the candle at both ends, you're not creating a great experience no matter what the outcomes are. Right? An experience is just like what we said, it wasn't the words in our speech that made the difference. It was the connection that people felt to us authentically. It's the same thing. Is that experience that we're creating, no matter what the outcome is, that's what people remember. That's what we feel as human beings. That's what we innately and internally connect to. I will even share, so a lot of people are like, oh, but you don't know what I'm going through. Right? You're not in my situation. You don't know. I will share, even when I lost my son to stillbirth. When my water broke, I went into the hospital and I was there for 2 days, and he was a fighter. Man, we heard his heartbeat on the second night through the ultrasound, and he was like, I got this. And the next morning when I woke up, his heartbeat was gone. And so in that moment, I remembered thinking, I can't call somebody else in to do this for me. I still have to deliver my son. And I don't know why, because I didn't have the training and all the stuff back then, but there was something inside of me that said, okay, the situation is the situation. That's not going to change. And I can't delegate this to somebody else. I get to move through. What do I want to create right now? And I remember thinking to myself, what matters most in this moment? And what experience do I want to remember for the rest of my life? Because that is not something you forget, ever. And in that moment, I said, okay, I'm going to choose gratitude. And I don't know how I did, but I just started paying attention to the nurses' staff, the nursing staff that was there. They were amazing, so caring and gracious, and I was so grateful for them to be there with me throughout. It ended up being 12 hours of labor, knowing, you know what's on the other side.
Jeez.
And I said, my mom gets to be here with me. And she did. She got to fly in the night before because she lived on the other side of the country. My mom had just had a double mastectomy from breast cancer. She was waiting for chemo and it had been delayed. Had she started chemo, there's no way she would have been able to fly out and be with me, right? My best friend ended up being there that weekend. She lived on the other side of the country. No reason she should have been there, right? So I literally thought to myself, how can I find gratitude for the things, the people, the experience, and honor my son? Because I just didn't want to remember that day as being the soul-sucking sadness that it was. And both could be true. I could feel sad, and I could be grateful.
I love you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I know that's a heavy topic for a lot of folks, but I really just want people to know, you can have both. even in situations that you go, there's no way I can find a silver lining in this, you can tap into gratitude. And it actually does shift your brain. Like now I know that. I didn't know that back then. But in the brain spec scans, we actually show when you are in a state of gratitude, which is a creative state, right? Parts of your brain are lit up and functioning really well. The parts that help you remember things, problem solve, motor coordination, like just a lot of different areas. The same parts of your brain, when you are in fear and worry or a reactive state, they shut down. So you actually are not functioning at your best when you're in fear and worry. Right? So just from that alone, I'm like, we get to choose.
Love it. I love that so much because so many things. First of all, I really just honor you for having to go through that experience. It's heart feeling. It's beautiful. It's awful. And it's really, I mean, it's what pushed you in a way. And a couple things, if I could share with you.
Please.
Did you feel before your son was here, did you find it hard to allow people to show up for you?
I never allowed people to show up for me because I always showed up.
How fun that you got to have that flip in one of the worst situations of your entire life. Something that sticks with you forever.
Yeah.
You got to allow people to take care of you where you've been taking care of everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was and so you probably had 4 very incredible lessons through those D's. And I'd be curious I'd be curious as to what the other ones showed up at, and the debt and the divorce and, abandonment. Like what I'm sure something we tell our clients a lot is to not stay in the victim state of it. You have to feel it and you have to go through it, because that struggle on the other side of the struggle is really what is going to be empowering. That's, like you say, the magic is on the other side of that. And the fact that you had this flip to say, okay, I have a choice. You felt it. You had the moment of this is awful.
Oh, for sure.
You were cognitive enough to say, how can I make this great? And you chose gratitude.
How does this get to be different?
Yeah.
Right?
How can you make it a different story?
Yeah. And I mean, and the reality is no one would have blamed me if I was like in a downward spiral of sadness, right? Absolutely not. But we get to choose how we want to experience life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even like when you say like with the other 4 Ds, yeah. When they said, oh, you have this cancerous tumor and if we don't get it out, it's going to kill you in 10 years. I'm sorry, what? Like, no. I just went through all this stuff, like with pregnancy. Like, what are you saying to me right now? It's this moment of, okay. And again, the gratitude of, whoa, okay, they don't normally find that. Mm-hmm. Like, that's something they don't normally find. How wonderful that now I get to go through surgery and have parts of my body removed. Yay! Woohoo! But again, on the flip side of that, like on the other side of this is life.
Yeah.
Right? I get to have life.
Beautiful.
And then the divorce, that was a choice of mine. Really, because I got to the point where I said, I get to take a really good hard look at how life is unfolding. And is this the story that I want to be telling about my life? And it wasn't. And I will say the divorce, like we are really good co-parents. He lives 2 miles one way from my house. My parents live another 2 miles another way. And my daughter doesn't have to choose. Like, it's not always easy, but
but you choose
in that moment,
you choose it.
It's like, I'm choosing to be kind now. Like, no.
Yeah. Thank you for being the father of a child. I hate you, but I love you. You're great. You're great. I just don't know yet.
And it wasn't, and I think a lot of people, when they hear too, like, oh, you chose divorce, it was your choice. That doesn't mean it was an easy one.
Absolutely.
right? Not at all. That was never something that was on my list of things to do in life, get divorced. It ended up being one of the very best things. Because even with my daughter, we can have conversations about it, right? And we don't badmouth each other. Like, it's another opportunity to really show up in life in a state of gratitude and in a state of curiosity. Really, there are moments where I just was wanting to be in a big pile of judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in those moments, I go, okay, I'm feeling the judgment coming on. How might I get curious about what's happening here? Right? The questions we ask ourselves, and this is such a huge thing. We ask ourselves questions all the time, just by happenstance. It's the way we're wired. We're like a Google search engine, is how our brain works, right? And so if I ask the question, why is he such a jerk? Of course, I'm going to get all the answers back. Well, because of this and this and this and this, right? So,
Oh my gosh.
I am vindicated in my judgment, right? Right. So, but judgment, let me just say, judgment is the graveyard for innovation, for curiosity, for possibility. And I know that. So I was like, okay, let me just get through the feelings that I'm feeling. And then let me shift into curiosity. How might we co-create a relationship together that works? Then that question elicited so many different things, so many different possibilities that I literally would have just shut out if I had just focused on the things I didn't really appreciate.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that concept. We're a Google search. Whatever you put in, you're going to get an answer.
Totally. We're the original Chat GPT.
We have the artificial intelligence.
That's right.
You want to add anything to it? I feel so bad that you're over there.
No, I'm doing great. I just wrote down that quote, though. You said judgment is the graveyard for curiosity, innovation, and what was it? Possibilities?
Possibility.
I wrote it down right then.
Nugget.
That's a good one.
I know.
Nice. I made it on the paper, on the notes.
We can be judgmental sometimes. I think everybody is, especially David.
Everybody.
Just kidding. You're perfect. We pick on each other. That's like our love language, I think.
I see.
We troll. We're trollers, but we do it with love. Yeah. Right?
She's joking about it, but if I go, she's the type, she'll joke with me and I'll jab her back. She's like, why would you say that?
I know. You're my
Like, wait,
feeling.
what were we doing here? I thought we were bantering.
I thought you loved me. You don't like me? You have any other questions for our beautiful Tina?
Well,
I know she has to go soon, so I don't
okay.
want to gobble up all the time. Which
Going back to, out of the laughter, sorry, but you say you were diagnosed with cancer. Was that after the stillborn?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, there was
How was that found?
stillborn. 2 months later, I was pregnant with my daughter. So that pregnancy went really well, thankfully. And then 6 months after she was born, the cancer. So it literally was like in a span of 2 years, losing, having, and then cancer. So
Gotcha.
yeah, your body kind of goes, whoa, what's happening? And
It was after your daughter was born.
yeah.
Okay. Would you think that timing almost between the stillborn and your daughter being born, was it almost like the perfect timing to where they were able to find it? Because if everything went right with your son, do you think they would have found it the same way?
That is such an incredible question and perspective on the whole thing. Yes, absolutely.
Like he saved you a little bit?
Yeah, well, because too, like, so with losing my son and then getting pregnant right away, I'm very hypersensitive of my body at the time, right? Hormones are crazy. And so right after having my daughter, I was thinking, okay, the symptoms I'm having, probably just healing from all of that. But 6 months later, symptoms still being there, we won't talk about, but symptoms still being there at 35. Like, I was 35 years old. And the doctors are like, yeah, that's not normal. That's not right. But I might not have realized it if I hadn't had those moments to really stop being on the hamster wheel of doing all the things all the time, and recognized. Because I will share too, I almost didn't go in for the screening that found it, because I had missed so much work with the pregnancies, right? And everything going on. And I wasn't going to go. I was like, whatever, it's fine. It'll be fine. But there was something inside of me, like my intuition was like, girl, you get your butt in the car and you need to go do this. So thankfully I did. And I just really want to help people recognize your body will tell you.
Just, yeah, that's
right?
true.
Stop trying to let your head dictate, because your body will tell you when you need to be doing something.
Mm-hmm. I agree. No one listens to their body anymore, whether they cover it up with something like we were saying early on with medication, or they're just not intuitive with their body. They don't work out. They don't know what feeling is supposed to be happening. They just, you got to know yourself a little bit.
And I didn't realize I was disconnected too. And I was. Through this work, I realized, like, from here down, I was like completely disconnected from what my body was trying to tell me to do. Right. And so what a lot of us don't know, though, is like your heart sends more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart. We tend to think of like our brain as the machine that does it all. Your heart actually dictates to your brain more than your brain dictates to your heart. So listen to it.
Yeah, there's a reason why the heartbeat's the first thing we detect in a baby, right?
That's exactly right. Way before your brain has ever formed.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, so I know she's saying we're running out of time here in a minute. What are some people in your line of work or in this, realm that you look up to? Is there anybody that you really like to pay attention to, or books you read?
Oh my gosh, I read all the time. I love Brené Brown's work because of the courage and the authenticity. I love the work of Conscious Capitalism because it really talks about business being the heartbeat of the world. And business is meant to elevate people. And so if folks are not familiar with Conscious Capitalism, I highly recommend it, because the 4 tenets of Conscious Capitalism, it's conscious leadership, it's higher purpose, right? It's conscious culture and stakeholder integration. And these companies, they outperform S&P companies by 1,000%, but they're not focused on revenue. They're focused on the why, the big why, all the big things in life. And so I would just share with folks, that if you haven't gone down that track, Conscious Capitalism.
I've heard of that one before, but never heard it broken down. So I'm going to check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
It's a good point. Because that's, a bunch of our friends keep saying you don't have to do so much you can do less and still make money and be successful. You're doing too much. Like you said, do you feel, no, that's not how I want to phrase this. Hold on, let me get my thoughts together.
Yes, she feels.
Do you feel?
I feel a lot.
If you could go back and you could trade places with your daughter and she could be, hold on. Hold on. Stand by.
The poison's kicking in.
Time out.
If your daughter were your coach and you were the daughter,
Oh boy.
how would you have received the coaching that you gave her at 6 years old? At where you were when you were her age? How different would your life have been?
Oh, wow. I think I would have trusted myself more. I wouldn't change anything I've done in my life, because I firmly believe everything we do leads us to where we are. At the same time, there was a lot of time that I didn't trust myself. I didn't understand how I was wired. I always felt a little different. I grew up in a military base, went into the military. I was a college cheerleader, and people were like, wait, what? I don't understand what's happening here. What are you doing? And I feel like I went down a path because it's what I knew. It was familiar to me. It was a wonderful path. I had amazing experiences that I never would have had otherwise, right? So no judgment about that. Just an awareness that had I trusted myself and my innate gifts and who I am to step outside that box, right? And be uncomfortable and kind of just go on my own path, figure it out, it might have been a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wouldn't change it, but I highly encourage people as early as you can, get in touch with who you are and really celebrate who you are. Because the more we celebrate our gifts, the more we're searching for things that are aligned with that, right? So we naturally start to recognize opportunities that are aligned with us when we start to celebrate who we are. So I would do that as early as you possibly can.
3 things to help somebody learn to trust themselves. What would you tell them if there could be, if you could have a room full of every single person on this planet to help expedite them to trust themselves? 3 golden nuggets. What would you say?
3 golden nuggets to trust yourself.
How? Yeah.
Listen to your gut. Listen to your gut first. Second, get clear on what you really want and why. And if it is because it's someone else's definition of success, that's the wrong path for you. Right? So get clear on what you really want and why, and ask yourself generative questions. Questions that are life-giving, that expand your ability to see possibilities and solutions. If you're asking yourself questions that keep you feeling stuck, it's the wrong question. You get to flip it into a generative, life-giving question.
Good. I go. Those are so good. Oh my God. All my other questions were like lessons, what value, where were you shifting focus, vulnerable moments. I feel like you've covered all my questions along this podcast just naturally.
Great.
I really, really appreciate and respect so much your vulnerability and for you showing up for us today and for showing up for other people in your circle, outside of your circle, not staying in your little box of coloring perfectly within the lines. I just love you so much, Tina. And I knew when I met you how special you are. I could just feel it. I'm like, this girl is a powerhouse. And I really appreciate your gifts. And I thank you for showing up today and sharing them with us.
I so appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys, because I felt the same way when you and I were sitting next to each other. I could just feel your energy. It radiates. And yes, same thing. So special, so much to bring to the world. And I'm just super grateful for you guys creating this platform to bring those of us in that you're bringing in to share our stories and just be a part of yours. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I punched the microphone on the way. I took your daughter's left hook and was like, you have any takeaways? You can't see David shaking his head like I'm an embarrassment. You love me.
I love you so much.
And
Absolutely, you do.
there's an and, not a but.
There's no and. There's a butt. It's a big old butt.
Don't say but.
Oh,
It's a good butt.
Yeah, he's a booty guy. Any takeaways?
Takeaways. Yeah. It's good to be uncomfortable. If you're laying on the couch eating junk and you're comfortable with your situation, but uncomfortable with life and your fulfillment, then get out and do something. It's okay to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. Set the temperature. Quit responding to everybody else's. I like this conversation. It's
just
fun.
absolutely. One thing too, before we go too, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bronnie Ware's work. She wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying, the top 5 regrets of the dying.
Oh, what a great
Top 5 regrets of the dying.
Top 5 regrets of the dying. The
title.
number 1 regret, because she's a palliative worker, so she's worked with thousands of people who are at their last couple of days, right? The number 1 regret is I wish that I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me.
That hits home for everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah. What's one thing we can all do today that would put us in our own path of life instead of living for other people? Go. What can you do? Let's hold each other accountable on this.
What
You're
can
on.
I do?
I'm going to put it on you because I don't know mine.
I was
So
saying,
I'm-
why do I have to go
We have
first?
buying time here.
Yeah, I'm going to give myself some time. So find a way to live your life for you and not for others. Where are you showing up for others and not yourself?
I guess when Tina was talking about, I forget the exact part of the conversation, but just basically making sure everyone else is comfortable at all times. Like it hits where family or friends or people are over and you're always worried about them. And then on the inside, you're sacrificing your actual fulfillment in all those moments. And then they leave and thought they had the best time ever. And you're just stressed out the whole time. So it's like, I don't know, quit trying to please everybody and be comfortable. Maybe just like really focus on yourself, find out why you're feeling that way.
It's a good one.
I don't know if that
Very
even made
good.
sense.
No, it
just
actually
came
did.
to me.
To me, it made sense to me.
All right, Steph.
Okay. Mine would be Mine would be showing up for work. That I like to say yes. Similarly, I like to please people, especially in my work life. And sometimes my pleasing them for work isn't giving me what I need in that time. Meaning, maybe I'm sacrificing my time where I could be building up our business by helping other people build up their business. And so honing that in and stop people pleasing in my profession would be very helpful.
Yeah.
What about you, Tina?
I'm going to have another vulnerable moment.
Yay, I love them.
Celebrate that. I'm going to say for me, it's taking the limits off. It's sharing my wisdom. I've hated even saying that I have wisdom because I'm like, what? Who am I? But we all do, right? So for me, it's owning my life experience and sharing with other people to help them and so that they can find me because I've been hiding. I have been hiding and I don't get to hide anymore.
I hide.
Not the
You're
same.
in the corner.
He literally is in the corner of this room.
And I control the camera, so I'm going back to hiding.
Okay, but when you said, "Who am I?" I'm going to challenge. We have a few minutes, so I just want to challenge you. Who are you? If you think, but I want you to tell me who you are with the most confidence and love of yourself right now. Because you don't have the wisdom. Who am I? Well, who are you? Let's hear it. How do you see yourself?
I see myself as a healer. I see myself as a person on this earth who is here to help elevate others, to find their true passion, to find their pathway. That's who I see myself as. Like I know John Maxwell. I love John Maxwell. He's one of my mentors, right? And I'm certified in his stuff too. But he says leaders show the way. And I gotta say, I don't agree. I think leaders shine a light so others can find their way.
Don't you just love her?
That's
Go
why
ahead.
I think
Go ahead,
I'm
I cut
on
you
the
off.
planet.
I love you so much. I love you so much.
I love you too.
I'm an old person, so I do this part. I don't know the new one.
Yeah, what's the new one?
I don't know. There's a new one?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, it's actually very simple.
Isn't
but
it
I
like
can't-
this?
Yeah, let's flip your camera so we can see you.
I know
You have
that
to
we're
show-
like this, but like the younger people are like they do like
They like an
they
upside
do like
down.
a claw. No, look at this.
Yeah, that. What is that? How are you doing that? You make it look so
You
easy.
just go claw, claw, and you put them together.
No, this is our generation. The other one's upside down.
I don't know.
Like this?
I can't keep up.
I don't know.
I'm really confused.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's it.
like that.
That's like, see, I feel like when we were growing up, that's like a gang sign. Like, what up?
I know. We're so gangster.
You're like,
Tina, I can't wait. If there's any way we can support you along the way, let us know where people can find you. If other people feel really connected, which I know they're going to, where can people find you for your services, your coaching? Just sign up for your authenticity alignment code path.
yeah. So leadoutsidethelines.com. That's my website. I'm on LinkedIn as TP Sunshine, which is probably not a surprise to anybody. That's my handle. And then I have a masterclass. It's a free masterclass to help people really start to walk down this path of scaling up and being in that true authentic alignment code for themselves. So I'd love to share that out with folks too.
Heck yeah. Will you send us the link on email and we'll put it down below and here where people can just click the link and go get it? Does that work?
Of course.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. Have
Awesome.
so much fun. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your
Oh,
patience
thank
as
you.
we set up our first virtual podcast. And thank you for your wisdom,
I was
my
the
beautiful
first.
healer. Such a wise soul, man. I love it.
Thanks for being our first.
Peace out.
See ya.
See y'all.